Over 2 million people have already watched Juliet Schor's TED Talk, including me. And it basically looks at the case for a 4-day work week. And it might sound great right now sitting where you are. I'd love to work 4 days, right? Of course, who wouldn't? But to approach the people who you work for to say, hey, I'd like to work a 4-day work week, that's another story. Her approach to this idea comes from a very research-based place. And we're going to talk with Juliet about her research and her understanding of how to measure productivity when it comes to sort of the sociology of working. Who invented the 5-day work week also? Like, when did it start? And who invented 40 hours? And why are we stuck on that? And what do other countries do? These are all questions I have to ask. I also think that because a lot of us are working remotely right now, there's a new layer to this conversation, which I want to get into. So, Juliet, thank you for being here. It's really exciting to have you. I really loved your TED Talk. And I think the work you're doing, especially encased in the academic space by being a professor, it must be mind-blowing for people to have to break apart something that's so established in our culture. And you're doing that right now. So I guess my curiosity about how you got into this will lead me into the next question. So do you work 4 days a week, first of all? And if you do, how did that come about?
Hey, it's JL. I'm really curious of the outcome of this 4-day-a-week conversation. I remember in 2011, I had just started a new position. It was my second position in leadership, and with a lot of responsibility. In fact, I actually was shocked that they even interviewed me and considered me as a serious candidate, because I honestly did not show up seriously for the interview. I was really lackadaisical, flat affect, because I was really sitting there thinking, here is a panel of people who've taken time out of their day to interview me, and why? I am so not qualified for this position. And I ended up doing phenomenally well. I'm grateful they saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And I remember getting this position, getting my salary offer. I did not even negotiate my salary because I was so shocked at the offer that I was like, oh yeah, I ain't gonna mess this up. I mean, it was a huge increase for me, to the point that it felt like I had 2 full-time jobs of an increase. So I remember just really being excited, living the high life, going to the mall, shopping pretty much weekly. And shortly after, probably about 4 months into the position, I had just paid off my car. All of these things are aligning well. I'm back to debt-free, etc. The organization hit a low point, and they really didn't want it to affect frontline staff. So they had providers, medical providers, and people in leadership positions do a furlough. And so they, try to present it all rosy. People were pissed off. I, on the other hand, because this was a salary increase, a huge salary increase for me, was like, hey, they were like, yes, Juanita, you have a question? I was like, yep, can we pick the day each week? Is that dictated for us, or we can pick? They were like, no, you can pick. We understand this is stressful for families. Like, we are going to allow you guys to have that autonomy. I said, bet. I'm going to pick a Friday and a Monday of each week. So I got like this built-in extended weekend. So I was super excited about it. And what initially felt like a very light, easy breezy work week quickly, and this is a mindset shift, right? How you can quickly become accustomed, if you lose the space of being grateful for where you are and the benefits of where you are. Quick mindset shift to, oh, this is wonderful. This feels like I have so much time. To, it was about we did it for about 6 months. I want to say by month 4, I was like, I got to work 4 days. Oh my gosh, why didn't they do a 2-day furlough? It's just not enough time of me being at home. So I'll be curious to hear from people who formally do a 4-day work week. Have they noticed that they now trend into, they went from transitioning from 5 to 4 days, and now we're there at this place where 4 days is like, this is a super long work week.
Hello, Deborah. Thanks for watching my TED Talk, and it's great to be in a swell conversation with you, period. The number of days a week I work, which was your first question, is a hard question to answer, period. I make my own hours. I work where and when I want for the most part, so I don't keep track, period. My kids are out of the house. But I would say the following: I do not overwork. I let my body and my state of mind dictate, for the most part, how much I work, period. Hi, Deborah, you asked about productivity and measuring productivity and how companies maintain productivity when they go from a 5 to a 4-day week. And it's a really fascinating question. What we find in our studies is that it's more important to focus on sort of team and company productivity, organizational performance, than obsessing about individuals, period. You can always address individuals who aren't pulling their weight. But what the companies in our trials do, and I should explain, these are companies who are going from 5 to 4 days of work, 32 hours with 5 days of pay, 40-hour pay. They figure out how to reorganize work to get rid of all this stuff that people are doing that isn't adding value. Meetings, distractions, moving personal things to the off day. And what they find is that the organizations get smarter about how they work, more efficient, people are more focused, and they're able to maintain that productivity or even improve it in 4 days. So it's a kind of amazing process that the companies go through. Almost all of them have been really happy with it. And for the employees who we survey before and after, it's an amazing experience and positive change in their lives.
Hey, Juliet, thank you so much for replying. It's great to hear your voice. So there's shifts in organizational reporting, and I love that it's macro, not micro. Can we talk a little bit about generational differences around this? I really strongly believe that companies with multiple generations working in these companies benefit so much from experience. But I also feel that, I hate to label like the millennials with the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs and baby boomers, but I think it's relevant here. Can you talk about different philosophies baked into someone's understanding of the work ethic? Because there is that element of like judginess, where people are looking at each other's behaviors. So it's kind of judging by growing up with certain value systems. So I think we could say that maybe millennials love the idea of a 4-day work week, whereas maybe Gen X's don't, or something like that. But have you found this to be a generational issue? And if so, how does an organization work through that cultural shift to help include everyone's perspective on, how people are working? But does it have to be a whole organizational shift, or can you have different departments saying this department's going to be a 4-day work week and this department isn't? Like, it must have to be a huge overarching change. It can't be division by division. And the second question, you can do two as well as replying. The second question is, what companies do better? What kind of companies do better with a 4-day work week? Have you noticed certain industries that do better than other industries? And I'll leave it here before I ask another question. Thanks so much.
The generational issues are interesting. What we're finding is that the companies who are joining our trials and opting to go to 4 days do tend to skew a bit younger. But we're seeing that the effects company-wide. So I think at this point, the impetus for going to 4 days is coming a bit more from younger generations, although I do want to point out it's the CEOs and the founders and the upper management who are taking the initiative here typically. Many of them are not so young. I mean, some of them are boomers or even, next generation after that. But we're not seeing so far that there's a huge difference in how people are responding by generation. So the benefits of a lot of that we're seeing in a lot of these companies across a lot of different variables like burnout, stress, physical health, mental health, positive affect, negative affect, etc. We're seeing those really across the subgroups of age. So that's the first thing. And the other thing about it is really also to think about how these are organizational changes that are happening. So it's typically whole companies doing it. I'll use another post to reply to your question about whether it has to be. So you asked whether or not a company has to do this with their entire workforce. And the answer is no, but. So the no is we have had some companies who want to start out by doing it with a subset of divisions or teams or whatever, and I think that makes a lot of sense in very large organizations. Most of the companies who are joining our trials are not so big. They're sort of mostly 500 and below, and probably half of them are 10 or fewer employees. So these are small. We have 1,000 person company in one of our trials, and I think we'll get a few more of those, but generally speaking, these are not the mega companies with tens or 20s of thousands of employees. I think those are not going to go all at once. They're going to do trials and, see how it goes and then roll it out. For smaller companies, it makes a lot more sense to do it company-wide because the people who don't get the 4-day week are probably not going to be so happy. They'll wonder why their coworkers got it. They may be resentful. It just, to me, seems like a recipe for disaster. So I think it's better to try it company-wide if you're small. Remember also that what we are doing is studying companies who are doing 6-month trials of the 4-day week. So technically it's a trial, although so far among the maybe 70 plus, 80 plus companies who have finished the trials, I maybe have heard about 1 or 2 who are not going to be continuing. So technically a trial, but since it's so successful, it's hard, and it's also counterproductive to pull it back after 6 months.
It's so good to understand that you can have a mix. And I'm really appreciating how deep you are into this and how these trials are just no nonsense. The data probably is so strong. I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to open it up to the world and see how this evolves. But I just want to thank you again for being here. And this question has to do a little more personally with you. I'm sure you have come up against really conservative voices in this space, people that are really entrenched in the old times and really puritanical. And I know you wouldn't be doing this work if you weren't in your heart of hearts believing that this is the way forward. Can you just talk a little bit about what your hopes are for the work you do and what your vision is down the road and what you really want to see? And this isn't a promise or an agenda like what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But I know that when you wake up in the morning, you probably love your work and you love the focus because it's really about improving people's lives. What do you really hope to see in the next 5 years as a shift and a change? And what puts a smile on your face when you think about this?
Thanks, Deborah. First thing I want to say is how few conservative voices we have heard from. And that's a little bit of a surprise to me. There have been a couple of economists who were contacted by press and, expressed skepticism about what we're doing, in part because the descriptions weren't all that accurate in the way they were portrayed in the press, but mostly not. And I think part of the reason is that this is being driven by business people. These are CEOs and upper management who are saying, we want to do this because it's good for our business. So that really takes a bit of the wind out of the conservative critique here. So that's the first thing I'll say. Now, that's not what you asked me. You asked me what my hopes are, what I'm working for, and where would I like to see things in the next 5 years. And I think the first answer to that is that I would like to see momentum on this. So I'd like us to be looking at many more companies that are doing it across industries where it's harder to do, occupations where people are already burned out. And so part of going to a 4-day week means hiring more people to de-stress those who are burning out. And I'm thinking of things like healthcare and teaching. I'd like to see some really big companies get into it and do some very in-depth research, not just on employee outcomes, which is where we know a lot, but sort of understanding how it is that they're able to do this and maintain productivity. So what's happening inside the organization. And with some medium-sized companies too. We'd like to put researchers into those companies to understand better what's happening on the ground. And then, of course, to see governments getting involved and starting to provide incentives for this and do some government-sponsored trials rather than, private trials like the ones we're doing. And ultimately to start thinking about legislation, period, that would move us down from the 40-hour work week. You had mentioned this in an earlier post, and the 40-hour work week dates to the 1930s. It's almost 100 years old, and it's time to change that. Mark Takano, congressman from California, is working on that. He's already filed a bill. In my own state, we have a state rep who's working on what he calls the 3-day weekend bill. So we're starting to see a little bit of it, but we're far from passing state or national legislation. I'd love to see that in 5 years.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I wanted to reply. This is really a nice topic, 4-day work week. Actually, it's too good because people are running behind the money because if they think they work for 6 days or 7 days, it's really like they're not gonna earn much money than working for 4 days. It's great if you have your own like a business or something, you can work 24/7. That's a great thing because you're doing for your own purpose, but working for corporate for 6 days in a week, and there are some firms in India which will let you to work for 7 days in a week. This is really like bullshit over here, and they're not gonna pay you. They'll pay the same money which they're gonna pay for the day. And if you need a relaxation in life, and if you wanna run your brain quickly, then you need to have a leave over the week, at least for 3 days or 2 days, to think about something. And that after all, you can do something if you get a leave for 3 days in a week. easily you can focus on something else, like improving your skills, attending the courses or something like that. Or if you don't literally obey without doing anything and working for 6 days for someone else, that will destroy you. You get 1 day leave and you'll sit and rest for that. You can't use your brain and you can't go out of the box. That is like really bullshit over here. And I love the way how the foreign countries are adopting the 4-day work week. But in India, it is like literally difficult. If they're gonna away for the 4 days leaves, the politicians comes in between and literally it goes gonna in a wrong way, and they will do some such kind of issues all over the India. Um, uh, People need relaxation. I have seen Germany people, they like not even work on a basis of like 8 hours, 9 hours. They work on their requirement of the money, and then they will enjoy their life. So that's a great thing. And I really love the topics, whatever you spoke about, and the sense you spoke about the 4 days week. That is like really good. I hope I want to join your committee, whatever your webinars and all. Thank you so much.